There is a moment in the trial by combat that defines everything you need to know about Oberyn Martell. Gregor Clegane, 8 feet of pure butchery and plate armor, is on his back, bleeding from a dozen wounds, his hamstring severed, a spear broken off in his gut, and Oberyn is circling him, not finishing him, circling. Because killing the mountain was never enough. He needed a confession. He needed the whole world to hear what happened to his sister Alia and her children in the Red Keep. That obsession, that burning, lifelong need for justice, is what makes Oberyn Martell one of the most compelling figures in the entire saga, and it is also what kills him. This is his story. Oberyn Martell was born in Sunspear in 258 AC, the younger brother of Doran Martell, ruling Prince of Dorne. From an early age, he was fostered at Sandstone, and as a teenager, he traveled with his mother and his sister, Princess Alia, across Westeros, visiting potential marriage candidates for her: Starfall, the Arbor, Old Town, the Shield Islands. Oberyn spent most of that journey mocking Alia's suitors, because that was exactly the kind of brother he was. The last stop on that tour was Casterly Rock, where they arrived shortly after the death of Joanna Lannister in childbirth. According to Oberyn, there had been plans between his mother and Lady Joanna to arrange a match between the two houses, either Oberyn to Cersei or Elia to Jaime, or both. Lord Tywin received them coldly and dismissed the idea entirely. His daughter, he said, would marry Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. As for Elia, he offered her the newborn Tyrion as a husband instead, a malformed infant as a consolation prize for a princess of Dorne. Oberyn never forgot that insult. He never forgot anything where his sister was concerned. Physically, Oberyn was everything a Dornish prince ought to be: tall, slender, graceful, with black viper eyes, a sharp nose, and lustrous dark hair receding into a widow's peak. He moved like a man who had been in enough dangerous situations to be completely comfortable in all of them. At 16, he was found in bed with the paramour of Lord Edgar Ironwood. The Lord challenged him to a duel. Given Oberyn's age and royal blood, it was agreed the fight would be to first blood only. Both men took cuts, honor was satisfied, and that should have been the end of it. Except Edgar's wounds festered, and Edgar died. Nobody could prove the blade had been poisoned, but nobody really doubted it either. From that day forward, Oberyn Martell was known as the Red Viper. He was sent into temporary exile, first to Old Town, then to Lys, framed as a diplomatic gesture to smooth things over with House Ironwood. In truth, it was the beginning of an education that would make him one of the most dangerous men alive. Oberyn studied at the Citadel and forged 6 links of a Maester's chain before growing bored of scholarly life. He traveled the Free Cities extensively, learning poisons, darker arts, and the kind of combat that doesn't get taught in tourneys. He rode with the Second Sons for a time before forming his own sellsword company. He was, by any measure, a man who had done everything and feared nothing. He fathered 8 bastard daughters, the Sand Snakes, by various women across his travels. Unlike most lords who scatter bastard children like seeds and never look back, Oberyn took full responsibility for every one of them. He trained them personally, taught them to fight, gave them independence and genuine affection. His paramour, Ellaria Sand, understood him better than anyone. She accepted who he was completely, and he loved her for it. In tournaments, he was skilled but not exceptional, unhorsed at Storm's End by both Rhaegar Targaryen and Barristan Selmy, present at the infamous tourney at Harrenhal in 281 AC, where he danced with Lady Ashera Dane. He was never going to be remembered for his jousting. His spear was another matter. When the sack of King's Landing came at the end of Robert's rebellion, Gregor Clegane, sworn to House Lannister, acting on orders, raped and murdered Alia Martell in her own chambers. He killed her infant son Aegon first, smashing the boy's head against a wall. Then he took Elia. Then he killed her too, with his bare hands, her infant daughter's blood still on his armor. Amory Lorch killed the daughter, Rhaenys, dragging her out from under her father's bed where she had been hiding. Oberyn was not there. He learned about it afterward, as everyone in Dorne did, through the cold, official silence of the new regime and the whispered truth that crept through every castle in the realm regardless. He tried to raise Dorne for the exiled Prince Viserys Targaryen. Jon Arryn traveled to Sunspear to keep the peace, and kept it, barely. But from that day forward, Oberyn Martell had one purpose threaded through everything else he did. He was going to make Gregor Clegane confess, and he was going to watch him die. He and his brother Doran spent years quietly working against House Baratheon and House Lannister. Oberyn traveled to Braavos, where young Viserys and Daenerys were living under the protection of Sir Willem Darry. He and Willem signed a secret marriage pact, witnessed by the Sea Lord of Braavos himself, promising Viserys the hand of Princess Arianne Martell in exchange for Dorne's support in reclaiming the Iron Throne. The game within the game, played far from any court. Oberyn also bears personal responsibility for one of the more ironic grudges in Westeros. His ongoing feud with House Tyrell began when he accidentally crippled Willis Tyrell in a tourney. He struck the boy's breastplate cleanly, but Willis's foot caught in his stirrup as he fell, and his horse crushed him. Willis lost the use of his leg but bears no grudge. The two men actually correspond by Raven, sharing a mutual love of horses. The Tyrells, however, are less forgiving. When Tyrion Lannister served as acting hand of the king, he promised the Martells justice for Elia's murder as the price of their cooperation. Oberyn arrived in King's Landing to collect on that debt and to take his brother Doran's seat on the small council. Every time he crossed paths with Tyrion, the question was the same. When would justice be served? Tywin Lannister's plan was to lie to Oberyn's face. He intended to claim that Amory Lorch, conveniently dead and unable to contradict anyone, had been responsible for all the killings, including Elia's. It was the kind of cold, cynical calculation that Tywin made look effortless. Then Joffrey died at his own wedding feast, purple-faced and gasping, and everything unraveled faster than anyone could manage. Tyrion was accused of the murder. Oberyn was named one of his 3 judges alongside Tywin and Mace Tyrell. The day before the verdict was due, Oberyn came to Tyrion's cell. What he offered was extraordinary. He would serve as Tyrion's champion in trial by combat against Gregor Clegane if Tyrion confirmed what Oberyn already knew about Elia's death. Tyrion told him the truth. Amory Lorch killed Rhaenys. Gregor Clegane killed Elia and Aegon. Tywin gave the order. Oberyn already knew all of it. He just needed to hear it said aloud by someone who had been close enough to know. The next morning, Oberyn prepared his spear with a venom that had no antidote. He wore light armor, deliberately. Speed over protection. He was not fighting to survive. He was fighting to extract a confession in front of as many witnesses as possible, and then to make sure Gregor Clegane suffered for every moment he had left. The fight was extraordinary. Oberyn moved around the mountain like water around stone, finding the gaps in his armor, wounding him again and again. He severed Gregor's hamstring. He drove his spear into the man's belly and snapped it off deliberately. And then, with the mountain bleeding out on the ground, the poison already in his bloodstream, the crowd watching, Oberyn stopped. He wanted the confession. He needed to hear it. He circled Gregor and demanded he say it. Gregor said it, and then Gregor grabbed him. What followed was brutal and fast. Gregor pulled Oberyn down, smashed his armored fist into his face, knocked out his eyes, destroyed his teeth, and crushed his skull. Oberyn Martell died in the dirt of the fighting pit. His face caved in, a confession hanging in the air above him that the whole court had heard and that Tywin Lannister could never take back. But the venom was already doing its work. Gregor Clegane did not die quickly. He did not die cleanly. The poison Oberyn had coated his spear with was something Qyburn had never encountered. It spread through Gregor's body slowly, keeping him alive in agony for weeks, rotting him from the inside out. Oberyn lost the fight. He won the war. That is the thing about Oberyn Martell that sets him apart from almost every other player in the Game of Thrones. He didn't want power. He didn't want a throne or a title or a legacy. He wanted justice for his sister, who had died screaming in a room full of Lannister soldiers while her children were murdered around her. He spent his entire adult life building toward one moment, and when that moment came, he chose confession over survival. He died with Gregor's admission echoing off the walls of the fighting pit. In Dorne, they still call him the Red Viper. They always will.